Well, we're back, and this is Millennial Meets Gen Z 90's edition, where I'm introducing this Gen Z who is obsessed with the 90's to the actual 90's. Go ahead and introduce
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Hannah. I'm obsessed with the 90's. I grew up seeing my mom's old photographs and things like that, and hence why I'm obsessed. I love the styles and want to know more about the music and movies, hence what we're doing.
And I'm Allison. I'm the millennial, and I lived through it. And while I don't fully understand her obsession with the 90's, we're going to dive back in and maybe I'll find that hidden nostalgia. So, unfortunately, this week, Hannah has had a virus. How are you feeling?
I am feeling a little bit better. My throat still hurts, still congested. The worst of it, as you know, was last week. It was the worst thing ever. It's an upper respiratory infection, according to my doctor. Not fun, not fun at all. Having to just relax and lay low has been nice. Definitely has been nice, but it's also been kind of annoying because it was on Halloween.
I know, I know. Well, this virus sparked the conversation this week about doctors and advocating for yourself when dealing with your own health. So, as the elder, I passed down some of this information. But before we dive into our Halloween themed 90's movie, we turn to an episode from the 80's and 90's show that really sets the best example I can think of teaching that lesson. It was Golden Girls season 5, episode 2, Sick and Tired. Now, this was a two-parter, but we're going to be focusing mostly on part two. You can watch this episode of the Golden Girls on Disney Plus. I think it's also on Hulu until Hulu is removed. Hannah, did you watch both parts or just part two?
I watched part one because I wanted the background to it.
Yeah. Well, it was good background too. Have you ever seen the Golden Girls before?
Not really. I think I watched like one episode for a class when I was in community college, but I did not know who the characters were. I knew who Betty White was, who plays Rose, but besides that, I did not know like anything really about the characters. So I have a bunch of notes about like the characters themselves too, outside of just the actual episode.
Well, as you have questions, definitely let me know. I am obsessed with the fact that somebody smart decided to put Golden Girls into a curriculum. So I'm happy that you use that in a class. If anyone out there listening hasn't seen the Golden Girls, you might be living under a rock. Or you might be Gen Z or Alpha, but show is 100% worth the watch. Now, technically, this show started in 1985. So by season 5, we were actually like leaving the 80's, we were entering the 90's. This particular episode aired for the first time in the fall of 1989, which you can actually tell by the shoulder pads that you see in the outfits. Golden Girls is a show about four famously married women, previously married women who live together in Miami, sharing their experiences together and enjoying themselves despite their hard times. The show stars B. Arthur as Dorothy, Betty White as Rose, as you mentioned, Rue McClanahan as Blanche, and Estelle Getty as the incredible Sophia. The Golden Girls went into syndication in 1990, and all the reruns ran through the 90's, which is when I saw this episode for the first time. Um, yeah, I even have a great, I'm not wearing it today, but I do have a great Golden Girls t-shirt that I will send a picture of so that we can post it to the socials. But you'll get if you watch some more Golden Girls episodes, you'll get the gist. And anybody who's a Golden Girls fan will understand. Well, part two recaps the last episode and then starts Dorothy at the community medical center with her neighbor, Dr. Harry Weston, who's a pediatrician. Now, I wasn't sure if you're aware, but this is a crossover episode a little bit. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I did not.
So Dr. Weston actually had his own show. It was called Empty Nest. It was a spin-off of the Golden Girls. He was a character on the Golden Girls. His family were characters on the Golden Girls, and they launched into their own show, Empty Nest. So Dr. Harry Weston, as we call Harry, believes Dorothy thinks she's sick. She probably is. And that's what starts off the episode. And she says, Harry, am I gonna die? And he's straightforward and tells her, Yeah, eventually, like everyone else does. Um, the B story in this episode involves Blanche becoming a writer and was a mess from writer's block, having a breakthrough and writing all night long. She thinks she's a genius, but she's also extremely sleep deprived. And nothing comes out of this book that Rose said none of it made sense. And the publisher ends up agreeing in the B storyline. But back at the medical center, Dorothy is with Dr. Chang, who is a referral by Harry, who thinks she has a chronic fatigue syndrome, a virus that hasn't been identified yet. He explains that it's not her. It's the doctor's fault for victim shaming and ignoring symptoms just because they don't have answers, which is honestly something we encounter in the medical profession as we go into like meet with doctors or nurses or surgeons. There's always things that happen in medicine where there's not enough answers yet.
Yeah.
So following all this, all of the girls go out to dinner. Dorothy orders champagne to celebrate that she knows what she has, and she sees her neurologist in this restaurant, the one she saw before she saw Harry, and his name is Dr. Bud, and he had told her that she was just getting old and to go see a psychiatrist, even to go get her hair done. She walks over to him. She tries to jog his memory about who she is, and he doesn't remember, to which she says, "Maybe you're getting old." Sing. And the best part is that Dorothy tells him she really is sick and is glad that at least she knows she has something, that peace of mind. She says, and this is like a very popular quote, at least I've heard it other places, but she says, "Words cannot express what I have to say, what you put me through. I can't do this in a restaurant." And then he goes, "Good." And she goes, "But I will," because she's a little bit vengeful. And she continues and
Rightfully
she
so.
says, "Dr. Bud, I came to you sick and scared, and you dismissed me. You didn't have the answer. Instead of saying, 'I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with you,' you made me feel crazy, like I had made it all up. You dismissed me. You made me feel like a child, a fool, a neurotic who is wasting your precious time. Is that your caring profession? Is that healing? No one deserves that kind of treatment, Dr. Bud. No one." And then I love that she says this. "I suspect if I'd been a man, I'd been taken a bit more seriously and not told to go to a hairdresser."
Yep.
She then tells him to start listening to his patients because they need to be heard. She tells the guy off, and with the support of his wife, who probably heard it before, based on her response, she goes back to her table to celebrate her win. And Sophia manages to get their meal comped by putting salt in the $430 bottle of champagne they accidentally ordered, and they get it for free. And that's the end of the episode. So, what did you think of this episode? Like, what did you think of the Golden Girls?
So overall, I liked the Golden Girls a lot. I actually liked Blanche the most because, like, as someone who loves writing and has gotten writer's block a million times, I related to her, and I was like, she's all over the place. I feel like I have a trend of liking characters that are like very ADHD ridden and kind of chaotic. So I liked that about her. I thought she was funny and very girly. I liked Rose because Rose was just very sweet and loving, and she was very kind to Dorothy. And I feel like Blanche wasn't being as supportive as she should have been because Dorothy was very much being like, "Hey guys, there's an issue. I'm falling asleep. Like I can't talk." And that I thought was crazy about that. She was so sick to the point where she would get so tired that she couldn't speak. And that made
Yeah.
me really sad for her. And I also, being sick as often as I am, I related to Dorothy because I feel like a lot of my medical issues haven't been taken seriously. And I think that's kind of part of being a woman. It's very hard getting your medical issues properly assessed, especially because it is automatically goes to, oh, it's a mental illness, or oh, it's whatever her neurologist said in reference to spiritual stuff. I was like, that was weird when he like brought that up. It's like, okay. And the hairdresser thing. My wife.
Sometimes medical professionals will put their own opinion
Yeah.
onto what they think. They'll put they're not supposed to, but they'll bring their personal thoughts, opinions, religions, whatever the case may be, into their own doctoring. And sometimes it kind of hinders the getting at the actual issue.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree completely.
I did, in reading about this, to put some of this together for an overview. I did read that this was one of Blanche's, Rue McClanahan's favorite episodes, who played Blanche, because she got to be chaotic. She got to be crazy. She doesn't often get that if you watch the shows.
Oh,
And she
really?
does often butt heads with Dorothy because they do have very strong I mean, they all
They
have
do.
strong personalities, but she has strong opinions about things. Dorothy has strong opinions about things. Rose is always just very like friendly and goes with it, but
Yeah.
she also can cause chaos in the show as well. And then Sophia's always up to shenanigans, and that's why she's one of the best characters that everyone loves. And so that's why I have the shirt that I have says "Picture It, Sicily 1912," which is something that she always does. Sophia does when she starts a story to teach a lesson. She always brings it back to like this story from Sicily. So yeah, tell me about like I mean, did you have any questions that you encountered in any of the characters or?
So one of my questions was whose mother is Sophia, and then I later found out that's Dorothy.
Dorothy's, yeah.
I was like, okay, that was one of my questions.
She's constantly telling her mom, Shady Pines, Ma, like Shady Pines. Anytime Sophia will act up, she'll threaten to put her in the retirement community that she brought her out of, to live with her because of the treatment at the retirement community. But she always threatens to send her back. And I will admit, I do that to my mom as well. I'm always like, Shady Pines, Ma, because she's seen this show and she gets a kick out of it. She knows I would never do that. But and Shady Pines obviously is a fictional place, but I do threaten my mother with Shady Pines all the time. That's one of my
That's
ways to
funny.
keep her in line. So, Mom, if you're listening, Shady Pines, Ma.
Oh, that's funny. No, I also, one of my questions was if they were so quick to assume that it had mental health issues related, wasn't mental health not as forefront as it is now?
It was, but not in a positive way. So, I mean, like, neurology was a normal, obviously talked about thing in TV and pop culture because, like, it deals with your brain health. However, like, symptoms of mental health that are not affected by an actual physical, like, thing that we can see, like a tumor or something like that was kind of taboo still. And it was like a way to control people by telling people you're crazy and you're just, you
Yeah.
have whatever issue. And so it wasn't really handled in the like respectable way that um you'll see a lot more of that development in the 90's because there was stuff coming from being positive and having positive mental health like in a long time ago, honestly. Sorry for people, it's not that long ago, but in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, the 80s, you'll start to see stuff, the growth of like the okayness of mental health, but it's nothing like it is today where you
Okay.
can tell someone, oh, I have ADHD, or I'm battling depression, or I take this for my anxiety. Like these are things
Yeah.
that we can openly talk about without someone thinking, oh, that person's a nut job.
Yeah.
Where back then it was still kind of like in pop culture, you'll still see stuff like that where it's played as not normal. So this was a good episode because it kind of showed like the complexity of health issues and that you could have a variety of things going on. This show does deal with a lot of different topics like that. If you do watch through the seasons, they'll deal with a relative being gay, they'll deal with immigration, they'll deal with, I mean, they were kind of ahead of their time, to be honest.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Kind of reminds me of the First Wives Club then, a little bit.
Yeah.
Thinking
And
of it at the
I
time.
mean, hence why we bring some of this stuff in. It's really cool to kind of highlight the stuff that set the stage for where we're at now.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. That I think my question for that stemmed because I obviously it was implied that he was being an asshole because he was being an asshole, but I was more wondering if he was calling her crazy in a negative connotation or being like, hey, this could be a serious like mental illness, but now, yeah, he was just calling her crazy.
Yeah, I
Friendly,
mean,
friendly.
because that mental illness isn't something that typically is handled by neurology. It'd be handled by like a psychologist, a
Yeah.
psychiatrist, a therapist, that type of thing. So yeah, he was just writing her off and writing off her symptoms, which still happens. You know,
Yeah.
it's very easy to get, unfortunately, it happens way too often. It's very easy to get lost in the medical system if you're not advocating for yourself, if you're not pushing. So it was, the recommendation from this episode is not to like go find your neurologist and like tell him off in a restaurant, but even though that was very nice and lovely, but it's to go get a second opinion from somebody that you trust, and a third, or a third opinion, a fourth opinion, however many opinions you might need, because there's so many things that they haven't quite diagnosed yet, and they just kind of get lumped together. Like everything, if you ever watched the show House, which falls outside of our time period, I think mostly, but um it's always lupus until it's not lupus. It's never lupus. It's always something else, but it starts out by somebody thinking it's lupus, because lupus is always the thing that they assign when when they've ruled out everything else. A lot of times, like a lot of diseases get, you've ruled out everything else, so what is it? And that's how things kind of get lumped together sometimes, especially in the autoimmune world. So I don't know anything about chronic fatigue syndrome, but maybe it might be something to see if it's actually real and what actually came of it. But it was a cool episode though, and it taught a good lesson. So
I
awesome.
agree completely. I
Well, I'm
agree.
glad that we could use your sickness for something helpful.
Yes.
Oh, you were
Yes.
miserable most of the past week.
Looking on the bright
Um,
side of it. No, it was a good episode, and honestly, I might start watching Golden Girls because I like their dynamic. I like their
it's a
dynamic.
good show to put on, just like,
Yeah.
when you're doing anything. It's just a good show to put on. You can focus, you can not focus, you can tune in, every episode kind of starts over. There's very few storyline. There's a handful of storylines that carry through, but there's always character development that comes through, but you can pick it up at any point. So it's a good one to watch. Well, let's move into our movie of the week. So this week we watched The Witches. It was released in 1990, and it's a family horror movie. I don't understand that category. What the heck is a family horror movie? This should not have been a family movie. It is terrifying, is what that category is.
Yeah. Yeah. Just yeah, the way you described it as creepy, yeah, it was creepy. I don't think that should be classified as a family horror movie. Like, first of all, as you said, what does that mean? Like, no, that should not be for
We
families. That was
watched
a
a
movie.
lot of scary things as kids in the 90's, with Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark, and a whole bunch of apparently things that fall into this family horror category. But this one for me came out and I was scared. So without
Yeah.
giving anything away, did you like it? And what did you think?
Okay, yes, I did like it. I did like it. I mean, I liked the ending. The ending made me happy, obviously, but as you said, as we talked about, 90s movies, I am since learning that they often have happy endings, which I really appreciate because I feel like a lot of the movies now just kind of end on cliffhangers, which is like not always the greatest because they want to like capitalize on it and make it a whole movie series, but like it's just in this case, it was just nice for the plot to just end on a positive note. And yeah, overall, I liked it. The prosthetics were very creepy. So yeah, the prosthetics were freaky. I liked the animation, which I'm sure we'll get into. I like the animation in certain parts. But there were certain things that I was like, oh, this is scary. This is gonna give me nightmares. But anything better than
Mhm.
sequels, as you said. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was kind of made in the late 80's, released in the 90's. This kind of ties into things that like along the same lines of like, if you go on to Netflix, they just put out The Labyrinth, so you could watch that. That would be probably a good follow-up to this one, but that's an 80's movie. But let's get into it. So the synopsis of this movie: a young boy stumbles onto a witch convention and he must stop them, even after he's been turned into a mouse. So Nicholas Roeg directed, and the movie starred Anjelica Huston, Mai Zetterling, Jason Fisher, Rowan Atkinson, and Charlie Potter. This is a film from Jim Henson Studios. It's important to mention because this is the last film Jim Henson ever worked on. But before we break this movie down, did you see there was a connection to last week's movie? Do you know what it is?
No, but I did try to Google it and I found a connection between Hocus Pocus and First Wives Club. Or
Yes.
when I think that is a connection.
Yes. Yes. So we'll get into that because that's our
Okay.
next movie. But we'll talk about what the connection is. But we launch into the intro and it's a flyover of the snowy mountains. Sorry, not Smoky Mountains, the Snowy Mountains. And my boyfriend Bo had said, like, what are you watching? Superman? And then he sits down, and despite it not being Superman, he actually did like this movie and surprisingly had never seen it before, even though he's also a millennial. So we enter the movie introduced to a young boy, Luke, played by Jason Fisher, who we'll later see in the movie Hook as Ace. So when we get to that later, you'll see him in that. And then his grandmother, Frau Helga Evsham, something like that. I can't remember. Played by Mai Zetterling, who is known for her role in Frida. And she's teaching him about witches. So there's a way to distinguish witches. They have a purple tinge to their eyes. They have an itchy scalp rash because witches wear wigs. They have human face masks, which is where the terrifying part for me comes in.
Yeah.
They have no toes. So they have square ends and plain sensible shoes, which I felt like was a subliminal messaging that we need to wear non-sensible shoes as non-witches. Like if you're not a witch, you should wear non-sensible shoes. But if you in the book, and I think also in the movie, the Grand High Witch does wear pointy shoes, and she's like the only one. But witches don't get caught. They don't murder with guns or knives, is what she said. Now, why the heck is grandma smoking a cigar in this like scene? I have no idea. Um, I was like,
I think that's one of my questions.
this is maybe to make her seem more European. I'm not really positive on that, but she then launches into the story of Erica, a neighbor girl when she was growing up. She was taken by witches and gets locked in this painting. She grows older in the painting until she possibly died. It's kind of like implied that she was gone.
Yeah, she just disappeared. That's creepy.
And then they kind of highlight the painting again, like in the movie, but then the painting stuff never comes back up in the
Yeah.
movie. Grandma
Yeah, I was so
Elizabeth.
confused about that. Sorry, not to interrupt. I
No,
was
you're
so confused
good.
about that. And one of my questions was going to be, why didn't they continue that plot point and like release the children from the paintings or
I'm
something
trying
like
to
that?
remember the book. And there's no sequel to the book. So, but I'm trying to remember the book. And I don't recall if that gets addressed or not. It was such a long time ago. I was thinking that I need to reread the book, but I've read every Roald Dahl book there is. That was my favorite author growing up, and so I was like reading everything. But I don't. Well, The Witches was one that I read really early, and I don't recall. Um, but then Grandma talks about she encountered a witch. She alludes to that's how she lost her pinky. Um, and we're introduced to the mother and father of Luke, and they head out for the evening. We're told that witches are very cruel and have a highly developed sense of smell. The cleaner you are, the more a witch can smell you. And if you're dirty, the witch smells dirt. So children smell like dog droppings to witches. And if a woman is holding her nose as she passes you, she could easily be a witch. Then the grandma suggests once a month showering, which is a very European way to think about showering. But once a month is a very, very long time.
That was crazy. I liked the grandma though. She was funny. She was like kind of hippy dippy, which I appreciated. Like, okay, girl.
We soon find out that the mother and father die in a car accident. Luke and his grandma pack for England from America, and they start there where he starts to attend school. There's a scene where Luke is playing in a treehouse and is approached by a witch. She has purple eyes. She talks to snakes, and she tries to bribe Luke with chocolate. And she wore gloves. That was another way that he knows that she was a witch. And the whole time I saw that, I was screaming, "Witch, witch, witch! She's a
Yeah.
witch! Don't go down! Don't leave your treehouse." So
Yeah.
obviously I didn't remember this part, but I was like, no. As she's trying to lure him out of the treehouse. And then it was interrupted by the grandma. Later, the grandma gets Luke some mice called William, and who he names William and Mary, which I think I said to you before, but if that was the case, they would have had more than two mice in like a very short period of time. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing that one Mary was maybe a boy, or William
Fingers
was a
crossed.
girl as well. I'm not sure. We learned that grandma had developed diabetes, but she's still smoking cigars. So no sugar and she'll be good as new, which I thought was a good way to, they don't talk about her having to get insulin shots or monitor her glucose level or anything that was around at that time. Um,
Just
so
no sugar.
they go to her to recover to a hotel by the ocean for I don't know how that helps diabetes, but
I was so confused why they were there too. That's another one of my questions. I was like, why?
it's a weird one. Um, and did you notice that Grandma travels like Mary Poppins with an umbrella and a bag? I was like, is this like is a carpet bag and an umbrella like a normal?
Me.
This is a normal accessory.
I just feel like the grandma, she in her own sense was magical. She had to have
Yeah,
like, I don't
maybe.
know. She had maybe the witches after they like took her pinky off or bit it off, infused her. We don't know.
I don't.
There's something
No
with her.
idea. Then we see Miss Ernst, played by Anjelica Huston, who is also known for roles like The Grifters and Ever After, and a whole bunch of other things. And her secretary, Miss Irvine, played by Jane Horrocks, and a slew of other women, along with the hotel manager, who is played by Rowan Atkinson, which I said before is commonly known as Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that one I picked up on. I was like, oh my God, it's the guy from our last podcast that Allison showed me. It's Mr. Bean.
So we're seeing that they're attending a conference. This is the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, the fifth national convention, with the chairwoman Eva Ernst. Grandma and Luke check into their hotel room, and Luke decides to explore while Grandma washes up. Mrs. Ernst taps the painting where a small child is. So I'm assuming the small child is stuck there.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
Luke
what I said too.
Yeah. Luke meets a kid who loves eating all the snacks, chatting, and oversharing. Bruno Jenkins, played by Charles Potter. Apparently, this was Charles's only role. He became a lawyer and now works in communications. So, where we work, not with us, obviously,
Yeah,
but in the same industry as we do, he works in communications. Um, I thought that was kind of cool.
that
But
was
as a
cool.
character, I related to this kid, Bruno,
I liked
a
Bruno. Bruno's
hundred
funny.
percent. A maid runs in crying to the hotel manager, Mr. Stringer, saying that mice are in the room if they're kept in a cage and nowhere else. It's fine for Luke to have his mice. At tea time, Grandma recognizes Mrs. Ernst but doesn't know from where. And Luke goes wandering around the hotel and finds himself in a ballroom which is full of chairs set up for the convention. And then back in the room, Grandma gets tired and takes a nap, which is kind of alluded that Miss Ernst kind of cast some kind of sleepy spell on her.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of my questions. Like, did the grandma had to have had allergies or something from like how did she know that there were witches? Like she sensed it. And I was like, she has to. There's
I think she recognized it because that's how she lost, supposedly how she lost her pinky was
you know.
Mrs. Ernst. So the ballroom fills with women for the convention, and Luke realizes these are not normal women. He's stuck there. So can we talk about these outfits for a second? The cape to dress reveal that Mrs. Ernst had, she had this cape on, and she goes like this, and it becomes like she throws it behind her, and it becomes this like the train of her dress. It was fabulous. And she's wearing this purple cape, and then she drops it and it's a black dress and it becomes the black train of her dress. I loved that. That was
I
like my
hate, yeah. Yeah, I hate to say it, I loved her human version. I loved her as a human. Like, not
So
after.
back to the convention hall, they remove their shoes, their wigs, and Mrs. Ernst, also known as the Grand High Witch, removes her face. And this is where, as a child, I hid behind a pillow and wondered why my sister was making me watch this horrible movie. Because this was scary.
Yeah, I
This is
know.
gross.
Yeah, I was not prepared for that. I was not prepared for that because when I searched up the witches, something else came up. Different movie came up. I think it was Hocus Pocus. When I searched up the witches, Hocus Pocus came up.
I think so. There's a newer version of The Witches that came out, and you might have gotten that
Okay.
because
Yeah.
there's one that came out a couple years ago, and it's got Anne Hathaway in it as Angelica Huston,
Oh my gosh.
as like her
Oh,
Angelica Houston's role
that's
in
cool.
Mrs. Ernst's character. Yeah. So
Oh,
you might have seen that, or you could have seen Hocus Pocus. I mean, it's honestly something that people are searching all the time during the Halloween season.
yeah.
So, which is why it's going to be our next watch.
Yes. Yeah, no, I was
Um,
very unprepared. I was very unprepared for that scene. I was watching it. I was like,
right.
oh, they are
Now you
hideous.
know why little tiny Allison was terrified.
Yeah, I was terrified. Me as 21-year-old me was terrified.
Well, I
Like,
think that I was probably like 7 or 8, and yeah, it was scary.
yeah,
So the witches get a lecture from Mrs. Ernst. One child a week is not enough. So
all the
Mrs. Ernst
children, all
says
of
her
them.
orders are every child in England should be eliminated. Like that's a big, that's a well, if they, I guess, to be fair, I guess I would not want if they smelled like dog poop to be everywhere that I went either.
Honestly, yeah, me
But
too.
I think that that's again a terrifying movie plot.
Yeah,
Um, uh, but yeah, a witch in the audience thinks that this is a difficult task to get rid of all of
yeah.
them. Questions her, and Mrs. Ernst fries her again. Terrifying. Like if you talk back, I'm gonna fry you. Okay.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
terrifying.
the Grand High Witch then instructs them all to buy sweet shops and candy stores to lure children at the grand opening with free sweets poisoned with Formula 86 to turn kids into mice. She plans to hand out the money and the poison to each witch, which, I mean, I'd take the money, but
Yeah, I was like, okay,
maybe
girl, like you're gonna find a whole shop.
minus the poison.
Yeah.
I mean, if
I,
you're passing out money and chocolate, I'm there.
one of my
I might end
questions
up
was,
being a victim.
yeah, no, one of my questions was, do we know where she got all this money from?
No.
I was so confused. I was like, how are you gonna fund like all of these witches' candy shops?
She's
Like,
the Grand High Witch. Maybe she lives forever and had the opportunity to make money over 400 years. I have no idea.
okay, makes
Because I mean,
sense.
if she knew the grandma and she looked that young, I assume that she's been around for a while. So
Yeah.
maybe it's old money, family money. I have no idea. Maybe it's been passed down. Maybe they paid dues. I don't know. But
Oh.
then you'd be giving the money back. I don't know. Just like save them money, and I have no idea. Um, Bruno walks into the conference. They bring him into the conference after they put all their wigs back on, and he was promised 6 bars of chocolate as a trap. And Bruno, having consumed the poison, turns into a mouse, which was scary and super gross all at once. And Luke is smelled out by the witches because he smells like dog poop. And his glasses get broken in the scuffle. He narrowly escapes the building, only to reveal himself trying to save a baby that Miss Ernst tries to push off a cliff. He gets away down the beach only to make it back to his room and find Miss Ernst there. She claims his grandma is an old adversary, as we know by the pinky and the weird looks. Then she kidnaps Luke, takes him back to the ballroom with all the witches, where they turn him into a mouse, which is a Jim Henson puppet. And the witches try to kill the mouse, and then he goes looking for Bruno. Then Grandma wakes up. Of course, Luke gets into mischief around the hotel, trying to get the potion from the witch's room and running away from the witch's cat. Grandma has to help save him from the cat. He gets a bottle and he carries it out and up the stairs like Pizza Rat back to his hotel room. That's what that reminded me of. I was like, oh, Pizza Rat. At this point, to this point of the movie, what do you think?
So I liked it. I honestly liked it more when they were mice. I thought that was so funny. Like, and I liked the way that the mice, how you said they were puppets, correct?
Yeah, they use live mice and puppets, kind of a mix of the
Okay.
two different scenes, and then
Okay,
I
cool.
think a little animatronic work.
Okay, sounds good. No, I liked the way that the mice looked. I thought it was cool. And
Well,
totally unrelated, but the beginning of the movie reminded me of Rudolph so much. I don't know why.
it's not Rudolph.
Reminded me of Rudolph. I was like,
It's not Rudolph. It's terrifying. Rudolph does not go around killing small children.
yeah, and like wanting to kill them all.
Uh,
I don't
well, as mice, Grandma puts the boys into her handbag to go see Bruno's parents, who don't really care about where their kid is at. He only eats everyone out of house and home, but definitely don't worry about it. So grandma tries to tell them their kid is now a mouse, and the parents don't believe her. And so, in all fairness, she didn't really give them much reason to believe her. The maid puts the potion all over herself, thinking it's perfume, and ends up with a hairy neck, which is really gross. The assistant secretary to Miss Ernst quits after she's being told she cannot attend the banquet that she probably spent all of her time planning. Grandma helps Luke into the kitchen where the poison, with the poison, where he then is able to poison the soup. Meanwhile, Bruno's dad orders the same soup as well, but it gets dumped before he can eat it. The chef, a witch who has tested the soup, starts turning into a mouse because she tested the poison soup. And then all the witches start eating the soup. The head chef, this is where we get into our tie in. The head chef is played by Jim Carter, who has also been known lately as his role in Downton Abbey as Mr. Carson, and he plays that alongside Dame Maggie Smith, which is our throwback to last week's movie with Maggie Smith as Ganilla. So they actually work together on Downton Abbey. Bruno doesn't mind being a mouse. He wants to live in the kitchen cupboard and just eat food, he says. Again, this kid
that.
gets me. He gets
No,
me.
like, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I related to him. I was like, okay, yes, Bruno. I love your positivity, King. Yes. It was so funny.
Having consumed the poison, the witches all turn into mice. The Grand High Witch starts to turn into a mouse, but it's pretty gross. She's old and gross.
Yeah, it was
Um,
gross.
Grandma
No.
traps her in a glass pitcher as all the other mice are attacked. Mr. Stringer kills the Grand High Witch. I think the thought is that mice can spread typhoid, is kind of what they kind of mentioned in the beginning, but still really gross. And then Grandma and Luke head home to England. Luke had the rest of the money from the Grand High Witch sent to his grandma's house, including the list of every witch in America. They get that from the secretary, and decide to plan a trip back home. And now the book doesn't include the next part, but the Grand High Witch's assistant secretary turns Luke back into a real boy and gives him back his glasses and his pet mice, who again, if they were a boy and girl, would be like 40 mice
Yeah.
by now. She then heads off to help Bruno, and she is a good witch. And that's the end of the movie. So, who's your favorite character?
Bruno. Hands down.
Hands down,
Tim. Hands down,
Bruno.
Bruno. It was so funny. He like I just
um,
liked how he was just like eating the food in like the reception hall or whatever it's referred to as. And
yeah,
he just like denied eating it. He denied like nibbling on it when it was
yeah.
like I just like thought that was funny. I was like, okay, Bruno. And he was just like so positive and was like, no, like I don't care. I'm a mouse. Like this is great. Okay.
What
Yes.
do you think about this being a 90s kids movie?
Should not be a 90's kids movie. That should not seeing the witches, like I was scared. I was what? The prosthetics were great though. I'm not gonna lie, like the prosthetic work was great, but it was like terrifying.
That was all done by Jim Henson.
Yeah, the prosthetics were great. That was very, very cool. And the way that they portrayed the mice was very cool too. Very, very cool.
So, any
So
last thoughts about this?
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes right now. One of my notes says, "This is a really creepy movie." It's one of my
What
notes.
I'm saying.
Like,
I think this will be probably the last time I watched it. It
this
just
is
brings
like
back trauma.
the first and only time I will be watching it, but it was really good. It was really
Yeah.
good. I wrote down that I liked the candy store idea, and I like that she has money. I can just barely understand why she wants to do that. I
Well, they smell like poo.
Yeah, but like a lot of things smell like poo. Like there's a lot of things that smell bad. Like
She's
why
not getting rid of dogs. I don't know. So I have no idea.
of all things, like I don't
Right?
know. I I don't know. I have $500,000 written down.
Wow. Okay. Was
Is
that the
that how?
total?
Yeah, I think that's how much money they were given. I wrote that down with a bunch of exclamation points because I was like,
I
that's
guess I didn't
crazy.
realize that.
Oh, I also enjoyed that the grandma could like understand Luke as a mouse. I liked that part. I thought that was really sweet. And I was like convinced that she had allergies because based on her falling asleep, I was like, maybe she has allergies to the witches. I don't know. That was like my little theory. That like
I don't think
they,
she was allergic to witches. I think she just recognized, like she saw them as a kid, and she
yeah,
recognized them, like
yeah,
recognized the face, but can't see and notice the other things anymore now that she's
yeah.
older.
See,
That's like
that
a
makes more
common
sense.
That's a common theme along like a lot of old fairy tales and things like that like kids can understand, but adults don't see the horrors or the scary or
Yeah,
the different things. So,
it
well,
was creepy. I
that
liked it
was the
though.
wrap. That was the wrap on our second movie. So
It's good.
now we're we're leading into we're going to be on our last Halloween movie leading out of the Halloween season, but we got one more. So our next week we're going to be talking about Hocus Pocus. And Hocus Pocus centers on the Sanderson sisters, three witches resurrected on a Halloween night in Salem, Massachusetts, by a virgin lighting a black candle. The witches, Winifred, Sarah, and Mary, have one night to steal the life force of children to become immortal, and they are pursued by the new in town teen Max and his younger sister Danny and their friend Allison. I mean, I don't mind the name, along with the help of a cursed boy named Thackeray Binks, who has been turned into a black cat centuries ago. Um, and
God.
this is where you would know and see the ties into the cast from First Wives Club with Bette Midler as the main Sanderson sister, but you'll also see Sarah Jessica Parker again from First Wives Club as another Sanderson sister, and Kathy Najimy or me. Omri Katz, Thora Birch, Vanessa Shaw. This is one that's a Disney movie, again from 1993. So it's a very big theme of kids' movies, of witches wanting to take the lives of children. so,
Yeah.
so yeah, very popular in the 90s.
Great. Great. Children don't get turned into mice in this movie, right?
No,
Okay.
not mice.
Cats?
Well, I just told you he was turned
The
into a black
Yeah.
cat, so
Okay.
I
See,
gave it
that's more
away.
cool.
Sorry.
That's more cool.
But this gets into a little bit more like pop culture of because the last movie, The Witches, took place in not in the 90s. It took place obviously long before the 1990s. But this movie very much has the pop culture of the 90s. You'll see costumes representational of the 90s. You'll see clothing, you'll see attitudes, you'll see school classrooms, you'll see a bunch of different stuff. So this will be a fun watch. I cannot believe you haven't seen it just because there was the release of the most recent Hocus Pocus. Like what, last year or the year before, and or a couple years ago I guess now, and it was a big deal. So
I- I'm excited. I'm excited.
yeah. Well, that's kind of a wrap on our Millennial Meets Gen Z, the 90s edition. But we will definitely be talking about some Hocus Pocus, and we're going to also probably dive into some music next week. So
Yay.
we'll tie in some songs from the 90s and talk a little bit more about them.
Awesome. 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 No, I'm super excited to watch Hocus Pocus. I've heard great things about it. I think my roommate has seen it and she told me she really liked it. Just to warn me in advance, is this one as creepy as The Witches?
Not in the prosthetics.
Okay. Okay. See, as long as I don't have to see those scary prosthetics again, we're fine. Anything else is fine.
It can be creepy, but
Okay.
it's also balanced with humor.
Okay. 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 I like that.
And this one was loved by many generations because I have people in my office that are Gen X, that also loved this movie. Hocus Pocus was just kind of a good family movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I had someone in my office going, a witch, a witch, a witch, a witch. So you'll hear that in the movie. I'm not gonna
Okay.
spoil it, but yeah,
I'm excited. I'm
yeah.
excited.
So cool. Well, until next time, we'll catch up and yeah, we'll watch Hocus Pocus. I'm super stoked to talk to you about this, and get our notes together. So
Awesome. Yeah, I get to see Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm so excited about that. Love
again,
her.
you'll
Again.
see
I'm
her
so
a lot.
Yay! I love her.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Bye.